There are a lot of people around the world driving change that impacts society. In this series, we'll share stories of transformation directly from the leaders themselves who made the change. We'll talk about their obstacles, their triumphs, their learnings, and how technology has accelerated their mission.
Out of all the interviews that we've had, which stories struck you the most?
I mean, it was like a really beautiful privilege to hear all these amazing people who, come and give us some of their time. And so I'm going to pick on a couple. So Alistair Phillips-Davies, who spoke to us about the energy transition. Mm-hmm. I mean, his company used to be a company that was burning a lot of fossil fuels to make electricity. And now it's like the number one provider of windborne energy, into the UK. I mean, it's an amazing story. So I just loved understanding what he and his company are doing there. Similarly, in the realm of healthcare, Terry Myerson from Truveta spoke to us about how you can create open source data sets that clinicians and researchers can use in the field of healthcare and medicine to help progress medicine and healthcare faster, better for people. And so again, I think folks who are taking modern tech, creating situations that allow others to build upon it, are the ones who can help, advance society. And I just love those stories.
It's hard to have these conversations with these awesome leaders that are leading amazing companies and not get impacted emotionally, whether that emotion is to be inspired, to be a better citizen. Which one of those nuggets affected you the most?
Chamal Azal of Change Please talked to us about homelessness. And honestly, he gave me some real insights about the underlying causes and how intractable some of it is, the fact that it can't all be solved. So when politicians tell you, we're going to clean it up, we're going to solve it, actually, they can't. But a good portion can be solved. And the approach that he was taking, remember, helping clean them up, get them jobs, get them some shelter, helping them become baristas and sell coffee, one cup of coffee at a time, I think was very moving to hear that story.
Since the last time we did Changemakers, the world has changed dramatically. We didn't talk to them, a lot of these CEOs, about AI because that wasn't on the horizon. What do you think is going to happen moving forward?
It is absolutely a nuts period. And I think you and I last spoke, when was it, like 5 months ago, something like that. Just before that, in November, ChatGPT came out. And the fastest consumer app of all time before ChatGPT was TikTok. And it took 9 months to get to 100 million people. ChatGPT did it in 2 months. So 2 months to 100 million is unbelievable. So since then, what's happened? Well, company after company are putting out these large language models that do things like allow you to interact with computers with natural language, English or Spanish or French or whatever your language is. And it's become really clear that any leader in any walk of life, any business, their tenure now is going to be defined, success or failure, on how well they adapt to AI, how well they use AI. I'm completely sure of that. Some of the engineering folks in Microsoft who are deep in the technology themselves are shocked at the pace of development of the new tech, where giant advances are happening almost on a weekly basis. For business people, for people leading organizations, working out how to take this AI technology and use it in a positive way for their group, for their org, is going to be a critical thing. And I think it's actually very hard to predict where we'll be in 5 years from now.
Change is happening now. 5 years from now, we'll be in the middle of dealing with the change that's happening. 10 years from now, we would have been settled. What do you think the world looks like? How many jobs are obliterated?
There's a lot of fuss and hype now. Some of that will go away. But in 10 years' time, everything we do will be impacted by this AI. And there are some, concerning areas we need to think about. Jobs, social media, people using it for fraudulent purposes, to confuse or mislead others. That for sure is something we need to manage carefully. But on the other side, the world has an infinite need for tech. I really believe that. Like, if you think about any walk of life, like think about the whole energy transition. And in energy transition, you've got heat pumps and fuel cells and carbon sequestration. All of that stuff needs tech. We don't have enough developers for all of that tech that the world needs. And this AI is coming at just the right moment to help us accelerate and provide the technology that the world needs to solve some of humanity's biggest problems. So I'm super bullish on what it can be for us. I think we have to lead the next few years thoughtfully and carefully to manage it in the right way.
How do we deal with the amount of jobs that will be rendered obsolete?
So if you go back to the 1800s, there were a load of people who had jobs cutting ice in Minnesota for refrigeration purposes before refrigerators and electricity. If you go back 100 years, there were millions of people employed in the horse, cart, and carriage industry. I think, I can't remember exactly the numbers, but in 1900 or 1910, 80% of US workers worked in farming. Today, that's like 2%. So when new technology comes along, it definitely creates shifts and transitions, which can be very difficult for the individuals impacted. But the new technology also creates loads of new jobs that are very hard to imagine and hard to conceptualize. And I mean, you know this super well, Will. I mean, how far back do we have to travel before you would never have heard of a web designer as a job, or a customer success analyst, or a mobile phone manufacturer? I mean, it's like 30 years, not that long. So this AI thing is going to generate a ton of jobs that we don't all know, but unfortunately it will impact some jobs that we do know. And that's where the anxiety comes from. So I think the focus that we try and always encourage people to think about is always keep a human in the loop, use the technology to augment people, to make them better at their jobs, rather than view it as a tool for replacement.
Yeah, and in the process, preparation, inspiration,
education
is super important.
100%. Today, with the emergence of tech like generative AI, things are moving quicker than ever. What are you seeing, Will, in the tech space that is catching your interest?
Generative AI is going to change music. One of my earlier careers that I had the blessings and the honor to have dreamt in and succeeded in, generative AI is going to change that. The concept of a song is going to change forever.
Hang on. What do you mean the concept of a song is going to change forever?
Are we going to put the same limitation and logic to recording and creating that we did on the record industry on AI music? Why would we do that? I think with this new technology, a new industry will emerge, and a song will alter to the form for this technology. In this abundance world of AI being able to compose, converse, educate, and learn, what the F is a song now? And should the folks that compose to train a model, or compose to distribute on DSPs? I think it's going to be you're composing to train a model. Tomorrow, the privilege is training a model.
Yeah.
For the most immaculate type of music listening experience where everyone is going to have a song scored specifically for them.
The thing that I'm personally observing is what you just said there in music applies in almost every industry. So no one's ever going to start a document ever again with a blank sheet of paper.
Nope.
They just don't need to. If you have a job with a lot of paper work, whether it's, legal drafting, whether it's, physicians documenting a healthcare visit or whatever, you just don't need to do that manually anymore. So there's going to be a huge acceleration in that kind of activity that really affects every industry, and it has a chance to be very positive for us. So, Will, one of the areas that we're seeing early on that generative AI touches is the whole marketing space, and particularly content marketing, particularly in consumer-facing industries. Mm-hmm. And you tend to be a bit of a guru on consumer culture and consumer marketing and, making brands. There's a lot of creative people in that space. How do you see that evolving with generative AI?
Consumer will change to interactive, engaging culture. The fact that we call it branding and consuming is inhumane, because branding means to brand.
Yeah, that's very bad.
Right? So let's say moving in the age of AI, branding is not what it's called. Because the moment that these large language models understand that branding means to brand, then its understanding of a brand on us and what we consume, then we're cattle. It equals bad. But engagement and interacting is what consumer culture will be. So now companies have to not elect agencies. They have to elect hyper creatives that have agency to impact.
I love that.
To inspire.
I love that. Engagement and interaction. I mean, and actually, weirdly, the generative AI is very helpful for that.
We're going to move from like agencies and marketing to community that has agency and culture. Because it's the only way that companies can have true relationships and dialogue when trust is currency. What's your perspective on technology landscape for business? What's hot? What do changemakers need to look out for?
So in the world of AI, a lot of what we're seeing is models that augment humans in their current roles, augment on the creativity side and augment on the productivity side, and obviously using this massive computational power. One of the most common scenarios is where companies are sitting on a lot of their own data. They can't get to it. They can't find it. So they kind of, if you imagine like your own corporate search function, like how do you find things within? And so Coca-Cola, we've done work with this thing, Azure Cognitive Services and OpenAI, to build a very complete accessible knowledge base for the company. At Strabag, which is a large construction company in Austria, so they build roads and things, again, using Azure and OpenAI to build a data science hub that allows them to simplify risk assessments for new construction projects. Like how do they decide which new projects can be done more safely, more securely, and more quickly. And then with JP Morgan Chase, we've been working with them on building something called Index GPT, again, to help them get to better insights and better decisions more quickly inside the company. In the cyberspace, as you know well, more and more technology is going to the cloud, and more business and human activities are going digital. So like software is appearing in our devices, which of course increases the attack surface for bad people, for hackers. And so building all the tools for privacy, for security, for protection, safety, becomes more and more important in this world. And so that's another whole huge zone that we see. Sustainability clearly is a huge thing for global CEOs and continues to be, and I'm sure will continue to be, something that most CEOs view as core to their business, not a PR stunt, but something that they need to actually do because their constituents insist on it. And so you look at companies like Grupo Bimbo out of Mexico, which is the world's biggest baker. They use the Microsoft Cloud for sustainability for basically tracking their operations so that they can hit their sustainability goals in 25, in 2030, 2050. And they have a whole series of levers that they pull to do that, from healthier and simpler recipes to plant-based portfolio, but they're using these tools to actually measure in a very practical way. There's a company called Equinor, which was primarily an oil and gas company. Now they're making a big energy transition, building out a lot of wind farms, and again, using Microsoft technology to help them get to net zero by 2050. I touched on earlier the industrial metaverse. So the industrial metaverse is bringing all this digital and cloud and AI technology into a manufacturing environment. So companies like Kawasaki saying, how do I use augmented reality and virtual reality technology in combination with machine learning, in combination with analytics technologies to improve the performance of robots on the manufacturing lines for Kawasaki robots. And then finally BP, primarily with an oil and gas focus, but also in the middle of the energy transition, again using Azure Internet of Things, IoT, as well as other industrial metaverse technologies to rapidly prototype new offshore oil rigs, cutting development time by years. So we agree, the tech is moving exceptionally fast, and probably we need to establish a set of rules. So actually what I run around talking to CEOs and top teams around the world, I basically say to them 5 things. Firstly, that this AI game is a long game. It needs the whole leadership team. You need the legal person, the people person, the finance people. They all need to make a plan for AI for the long run. Second is that the AI can apply itself to hundreds and hundreds of things, and you need to pick a small number of things that really are valuable and focus on those first. Don't get lost boiling the ocean. Third is for the AI models to work for the long run, the company's technology platform itself needs to be modernized. It needs to be in the cloud. Fourth, for the models to, again, sustain themselves is their reason over data. So that data needs to be captured in a unified data platform that allows the different leaders of the company to get the benefits from data being raised in other parts of the company. And then the last one, and maybe more important of all, is how do you do responsible and ethical AI? So that's not just about the leadership team having a conversation about, we care about bias, or we care about accountability, or we care about transparency. It's about how do I actually operationalize those principles in how I code and how I develop. So how do I train my designers and my developers to think about who will these models impact, to think about the misuse scenarios, think about if the thing breaks and goes wrong, like what may happen, and manage for that. And so that embedding responsible AI in what every company does, what the good people do, is super important. Well, I mean, you are super creative, and you always talk about the human side of everything you and all of us do. And I know that you care about ethical use of the tech. So how do you think about that?
When I hear the word like ethical AI, it makes me think of organic fruit. Because when my mom was growing up, there was no such thing as organic fruit. Like, every fruit was organic. You didn't have watermelon 24/7, 365 days a year. They were altered to where you could have watermelon all throughout the year.
Or shipped from Chile or somewhere.
Or grown in areas where you don't grow them.
Yeah.
Where they're not, native to grow. Hence the word organic fruit. Everything else was lab altered. And it's the way I feel about ethical AI. Like, you have to call it something because somebody's out there doing some foul stuff. that they're careless about it or have other intent. And that's what worries me. It's not the technology that worries me. It's the people that are working in the space, to where some folks have to say, hey, wait, but hey, we'll let you know, hey, I'm the good guy. We're the ethical ones. I'm like, wait. So if this is the ethical one and you're the good guy, well, can you kindly point out the bad ones? Because you have to know who they are. And is your ethical AI capable of pointing out the bad ones? How ethical is ethical? If it knows all the information, can it point out the bad players?
I mean, that's so tricky what you're saying, Will, because, forget, before AI, we had social media.
Mm-hmm.
And in social media, some people wrote bad stuff.
Yeah.
And then there were fights about, should we publish the bad stuff or should we not publish the bad stuff? Some people would say it's hate speech and other people would say it's freedom of expression.
Mm-hmm.
And so with AI, we'll have to deal with those same kinds of issues.
Social media had a filter on the camera, and that created body dysmorphia. AI is going to bring about psychological dysmorphia. People that would rather have the AI speak for them because they don't feel comfortable speaking or being judged. And then when you meet that person in person, you'll be like, hey, you're different than how you were online. They'll have avatars of themselves that speak in their likeness, but then when you engage with them in person, they wouldn't have the depth.
One of the people who really stuck in my mind was Miriam Vogel, who talked to us about the ethics of AI and how, as a society, we had a lot of work to do to adapt to the age of AI. What did you think?
We talked to Miriam before the AI kickoff. It's like, and so go out and check out past interviews, check out Miriam's podcast that we did, because a lot of the things that we touched on that early interview are the things that we're barely begin to tackle now, like ethics, algorithmic biases, data biases, inclusion, diversity, having other folks from different corners of the world participate in the training of data, writing of algorithms. It was a beautiful conversation. I'm glad you brought that one up.
Yeah, she definitely moved me because actually for several reasons. One of the things that I hadn't really thought hard about enough, and you're right, we spoke to her over a year ago, so it was a long time ago, was the fact that you have all these giant repositories of code out there that developers use and reuse, particularly in the open source software community. And if you then think about large language models as becoming more and more open sourced, and that's already happening now, that means that those things can get in the hands of anybody. And so how we build in safety into the models, how we create privacy frameworks, how we regulate where appropriate, all of that becomes incredibly important.
What's the off switch?
As you know, the biggest topic that a lot of AI researchers worry about and talk about is this alignment topic. So how do you align the motives, the objectives of the algorithms, the models, with objectives that we care about? That's the key thing. And so if you can create alignment, then I don't think you need to worry too much about an off switch. If we genuinely are concerned about alignment, then I think we need to be, very thoughtful about safety breaks in the system. I personally believe that this has been massively overhyped. I think that we anthropomorphize these machines as if they...
Hold on, wait, 1 second. Every time I get a new
I can't
word
say
in
that
my
word.
world.
I can hardly ever say the word.
Say that again.
Anthropomorphize. We try and imbue the machines with human characteristics, and it is not human. In fact, it's nothing like us. And so people confuse intelligence, because the machine is intelligent. It can solve problems that humans can't solve. We confuse that with drive, things like ambition, and they don't have any. Human drive comes from what? It comes from having evolved in an ecosystem where there are things like competition for resources and threats in the environment.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the evolutionary state of these algorithms. They don't have that. So again, when we sort of say to them, oh, they're going to be competing for resources or they're going to want to take control, no. The human desire to dominate others is human. That's definitely not what these machine learning patterns are seeking out.
When's the last time you used anthropomorphize?
So, Will, you remember when Mark Andreessen, about 10 years ago, said something like software is eating the world?
Mm-hmm.
And he was basically saying that everything, every product, every service was going to get something digital in it. What we think is happening now is AI is eating software.
Mm-hmm.
I personally find this amazing. So we're really, really close now to where any person, how whatever their job is, like an insurance claims clerk or whatever the role is, they could grab a piece of paper and they could think about an app that they want and imagine that app as a screen on their mobile phone or their tablet. And they could sketch it out by hand in a pencil and paper. They can scan it with their phone and then tell their LLM, their large language model, to write the code to build that app.
Mm-hmm.
And it will
Mm-hmm.
in minutes. So in other words, every human can program. Every human can use the machinery. So instead of us sitting there waiting to be surprised by someone developing some new tools that land on our desk and affect our lives, I'm encouraging everyone to lean in, learn this tech, and develop. And that's where this is going. And it really will change how the whole of our society works.
Yeah, new industries are going to come from folks that you never thought were the industry spawner. Like, new jobs are going to come from folks that you never thought were the job bringer. Tomorrow's going to be designed not only by the folks that were privileged to design in the past, but the folks that got ignored in the past, right? They're going to fix their communities themselves. They're going to unearth tomorrow's General Electrics, tomorrow's Westinghouse. Gentrification is not going to be folks that come in to a community, charge the rent to go up, and the folks that made that community
Have to leave.
colorful have to leave. Gentrification is going to happen with the folks from the community that change their community and come up with the change. The revolution won't be gentrified. The revolution will be AI-ified, because people that come from these areas that have to solve their problems, that were always marching for somebody to solve their problems, will solve it themselves.
Those are great points, Will. I think you hit all the key ones, but the big one is AI is something that every change maker needs to start taking seriously now, so they can advance not only their own business, but also do the most good for the most people. Will, it's lovely as ever to see you, my friend. Looking forward to our next chat.
Can't wait.
If you want to learn more, be sure to listen to our past episodes on Changemakers, where we talk with leaders from across industries. You can find them all at microsoft.com/changemakers, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.